Some people are very fond of scribbling on the screens. Please do not do that. Anyway, we will disable today. Annotation is disabled.
Disabled.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
But still it is coming.
Yes, sir.
Sir, questions I am able to see.
Okay.
I gave a small brief, sir, about the class.
Okay.
So you can start from the question whichever you have.
Okay, shall I start the class now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir, we can go ahead, sir. Already 450 people have joined.
Okay,
More people will join.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, 11:15 to 11:30 I have announced as a break time.
At what time? 11:30.
11:15 to 11:30.
Okay, agreed. Okay, good morning, friends. Now we are starting the session, but still it is coming out. The scribbling is appearing. Okay, friends. So we are starting the session. That is the test paper 1. Already maybe 2 days back it was made available to you. At that time the request was you are supposed to keep a hard copy with you to note down the discussions and the that is answers for the question. Now now we are starting with the paper continuation of question paper 1. Last Sunday we discussed up to question number 78. Now we are going to question number 79. So from question number 79 onwards, few questions are there with regard to that is no to refund rules of RBI. So that is we come across in a day-to-day banking the concepts of that is a soiled note or the concept of mutilated note or cut note, etc. This is RBI guidelines where RBI are certain, that is in the IBPS are certain questions on that subject. Okay. Now, before going into that question, let us see the PowerPoint presentation, which will be able to help you on that. Then we will go to the PowerPoint, then we will go to the questions. See now, the slide is before you. Note refund rule amendment September 2018. The note refund rule was amended by RBI. Now, in the screen before you, that is denomination rupees 1 to 20 rupees. So there you can see 1, 2, 5, 10 and 10 new MG. That is old 10 rupees note and new 10 rupees note after the demonetization, new Mahatma Gandhi series. Then 20 rupees note old and the 20 rupees new note is there. As per the Reserve Bank of India, that is, as if you measure the size of the note, the area of each note is given here. It is in square centimeter. The area of each note in square centimeter. Okay. So up to, as per RBI guidelines, up to that is to get a refund. This is with regard to mutilated notes. See, there are 3 types of notes. One is soiled note. So the soiled note, whenever a customer gives a soiled note, you have to give full refund. No question of refund or that is 3/4 refund, etc. But in the case of a mutilated note, so there is a concept of giving off refund or full refund. So what is a mutilated note? What is a soiled note? We will discuss when we see the questions. Now here you see, this is with regard to refund of mutilated note. See, the area of these notes are given in square centimeter. As per RBI guidelines, when a customer gives a mutilated note up to 20 rupees denomination, what is a mutilated note? We will see when we see the question paper. So when a customer gives yeah, that is a mutilated note, either 1 rupee or 2 or 5, 10 or 20 rupees note. So there is no way whether you will give full refund or you will not give any refund. If you are not giving any refund, you have to impound the note with you. If you are giving there is full refund, then also you will impound the note with you. Now, this is the full area. So to get a full refund, suppose when a person is giving you 20 rupees, old 20 rupees mutilated note, the area of the 20 rupees mutilated note is 92.61 square centimeter. To get a full refund, a piece of that mutilated note, should be at least 50% of it, that is 47, that is square centimeter. On the other hand, when you use that is 20 rupees to Mahatma Gandhi series note, the area is 81.27. One piece of that mutilated note should be at least 41 square centimeter. That is no off value up to rupees denomination. To get full value, the customer has to give you at least 50% of the total area. A piece of that mutilated note should be 50% of the total area which is given here. That is why I have given here total area, minimum area for full value, which is 50%. If a piece is less than 50%, you will not refund that note at all. Okay, you will not refund that mutilated note. A piece can be 50% or more. If it is so, up to 20 rupees denomination, you will be refunding the full value. That is with regard to up to 20 rupees, note refund rule. When it comes to 50 rupees and above up to 2000 rupees, here you can give off value or you can give full value. Up to 20 rupees, no concept of off value at all, only full value. So 50 rupees to 2000 rupees, you will give depending upon the size of your piece, either full value or off value. So the total area of each piece is given here. 107, that is, it is in square centimeter. Area is in square centimeter, like that it is given here. So to get a full value, there if you see up to 20 rupees, there is no off value. To get a full value, the customer has to give 50%. A piece should be at least 50% of the total area. Here, to get a full value, the area of one piece should be at least 80% of the total area. See, if it is 107.31, one piece of that note should be at least 86 square centimeter. Like that I have given here. So they may ask, if a customer has given 2000 rupees note, a mutilated note, to get full value, what should be the area of one piece, minimum area? It should be 88 square centimeter. In the case of 50 rupees to 2000, you can give off value also. When you will give off value, if the area of one piece is at least 40% of the total area, you see, off value. To get off value, customer has to give at least 40% of the total area. So the total, what is a 40% I have given here? So this is total area. This is to get full value 80%. To get off value, he has to get 40%. He has to give 40% one piece. Whereas in the case of 1 rupee to 20 rupees, no off value at all. You will give only full value. The full value will be for the area should be 50% and more. Earlier, before the note refund rule is amended, here, to get a full value, he has to give 80% of the area. Earlier, to get full refund, before the note refund rule was amended, to get full refund, he has to give 65%. Suppose if they ask the question, to get a full refund of a mutilated note, so how much area he has to produce as per the revised note refund rule? For 50 rupees to 2000 rupees, 80% of the area. Earlier, it was 65%. Now for off value, so customer has to give, the piece should be at least 40%. For 1 rupee to 20 rupees, there is no off value, only full value. For that, he has to give one piece should be 50% of the total area. Now let us go to the questions. See, now when you read the question, you will understand that. Now we are going to question number 79. As per RBI guidelines, which is called a cut note? Answer: torn into two pieces and both pieces are available. Cut into two pieces and one piece is not available. cut into more than 2 pieces and all pieces are available. None of these. Friends, as per Reserve Bank of India guideline, there is no concept called cut note. So the concept of cut note, when we seniors, when we were in the bank, there was a concept called cut note. Now the concept of cut note is dispensed with. The notes are either soiled notes or mutilated note. Okay. As per RBI guidelines, which is called a cut note, answer for this question is none of this. There is no concept. So for question number 79, answer is D. There is no concept of called cut note in the banking industry. Now, all notes are either soiled notes or mutilated notes. Okay. Now let us go to question number 80. Which one of the following Indian currency note is called a mutilated note? Which question number 80? Which one of the following Indian currency note is called a mutilated note? Options are A, note which is torn into 2 pieces, of which 1 piece is missing. A note is torn into 2 pieces, 1 piece is missing. B, a note torn into more than 2 pieces and all pieces are available. Okay, first is a note torn into 2 pieces, 1 piece is missing. Second option, a note is torn into more than 2 pieces and and all pieces are available. Option number 3, a note torn into more than 2 pieces, of which 1 piece is missing. What are all the options? A note torn into 2 pieces and note is option A, a note torn into 2 pieces, of which 1 piece is missing. A note torn into more than 2 pieces, all pieces are available. A note torn into more than 2 pieces and 1 piece is missing. None of these, all of these. Answer for question number 79 is all of these. So what is a mutilated note? A note torn into 2 pieces, 1 piece is missing. A note torn into more than 2 pieces and all pieces are available. That is also a mutilated note. A note torn into more than 2 pieces and 1 or more pieces are missing. That is also called as a mutilated note. So for answer question number 80, answer is E. All of these, all of them are called mutilated note. Okay, now question number 81. A person who is not having any account with Canara Bank approaches the cashier with a mutilated 2,000 rupees note for exchange. So a person is not at all having an account. He approaches the Canara Bank cashier to exchange a mutilated. What is a mutilated note? A note torn into 2 pieces, 1 piece is missing. A note torn into more than 2 pieces, all pieces are available. A note torn into more than 2 pieces, 1 piece is missing. All the 3 put together, any one of them can be called as a mutilated note. Question number, so all of these, that is why we ticked question number for question number 80, all of these. Now question number 81. A person is approaching a cashier of the Canara Bank to exchange a mutilated note. So options are accept, don't accept, ask him to open a fully KYC compliant account and accept, direct him to other bank or exchange department of RBI. Friends, for question number 81, the answer is, so that is commercial banks, the public sector banks have to accept all soiled notes as well as mutilated notes from general public and customers. That means it is not necessary that you should accept the mutilated note or cut note only from your customers. Even from general public, you have to accept. So for question number 81, answer is A. Okay, question number 81, answer is A. Question number 82. A Indian currency note. I am reading the question, you go through the question. Question number 82 we are now discussing. A Indian currency note which is formed by joining a half note of one note with half note of another note of the same denomination. Imagine you take a 2,000 rupees note. So you know that is up to 5 rupees note, the serial number will be in one place only. Up to 5 rupees note, if you see, the serial number will be in one place only. They are called single numbered notes. Up to 5 rupees, the serial number of the notes will be printed only in one place. They are called single numbered notes. For 10 rupees and above, the numbers will be printed. The serial number of the notes will be printed in 2 places. So they are called double numbered notes. If they ask that question also, you should not miss. So out of the following, which is a double numbered note? 10 rupees and above denominations, the serial number will be printed on two places. They are called double numbered notes. Here you see the question number. We are discussing a question number 82. A Indian currency which is formed by joining a half note of one note with half note of the same denomination. See, 2000 rupees. So he has attached two pieces. So if you see, one serial number is there in one piece, another serial number is in another piece. So what is this note is called? Counterfeit note, soiled note, illegal note, non-existence note, none of these. That is, this note is called mismatched note. So answer for question number 82 is none of this. Whenever it is none of this, you should know the correct answer. So answer the question number 82, answer is none of this. The correct answer for this is mismatched note. Okay, that is joining two pieces of one serial number of one denomination. So the same denomination, another serial number joining is called a mismatched note. As per in Reserve Bank of India guidelines, banks have to exchange the mismatched note by applying a rule as applicable to mutilated notes. Okay, all mismatched notes are called the mutilated notes. Question number 82, answer is none of these. If the answer is none of these, you should know the correct answer. The correct answer for the question is mismatched note. All mismatched notes are dash. They will give question. All mismatched notes are called dash. Soiled note, mutilated note, cut note, like that. All mismatched notes are called mutilated notes. Question number 8. See, we are not just seeing answer for one question. We are seeing multiple types of questions which will be asked in the examination based on this subject. So you should be thorough with the subject. That is the idea of this class. Okay. So for question number 82, answer is none of this. Question number 83. A customer approaches you for refund of a mutilated rupees 2000 note, which is torn into four pieces. Okay. To refund him full value, what should be the minimum size of a piece in square centimeter as per recent amendment to note refund rules? What the customer is approaching? A customer approaches you for a refund of mutilated 2000 note, which is torn into four pieces. To refund him full value, what should be the minimum size of a piece? You see the PowerPoint presentation? To refund a 2000 rupees full value, the minimum size of a piece should be 88 square centimeter. See, you know the full size of the 2000 rupees, 109.56. 80% of which you should give to get a full value. To get a full value, he should give you one piece should be 88 square centimeter. That is a correct answer for that question. That means by heart, you should know the size of the series, size of area of each note. For full value 80%, off value for 40%. So 88 square centimeter is the correct answer for the question. You see the question? The answer options are there. A customer approaches you for refund of a mutilated 2000 note, which is torn into four pieces. To refund him full value, what should be the minimum size of a piece? 50, 75, 80, none of this. Answer is none of this. For question number 83, answer is none of this. Correct answer is 88 square centimeter, which is given in the PowerPoint. Okay, sir. Now we are going to question number 84. A customer brought you a mismatched note of rupees 2000. What is a mismatched note? One serial number in one piece, another serial number in another piece. This is called a mismatched note. All mismatched notes are called mutilated notes. When you are exchanging a mismatched note, you have to apply the rule of the mutilated note. Okay, let us see the question. This question was asked for some other bank last time. One customer has brought you a mismatched rupees 2000 note. One portion has one serial number and another portion has another serial number. You recollect. So 2000 rupees note is bringing one, both are pasted. But if you see one piece is having one serial number, another piece is having another serial number. So it is called a mismatched note. All mismatched notes are mutilated notes. Keep that in mind. Now we'll answer the question. One customer brought you a mismatched 2000 rupees. One portion has one serial number and other portion has another serial number. Each portion has more than 88 square centimeter. Each portion has more. That portion is also having 88 square centimeter. This portion is also having 88 square centimeter. what is the amount of refund you will give him. Friends, you know, if it is 50 rupees and above, to get a full refund, one piece should be at least 88 square centimeter. Here, both the pieces are more than 88 square centimeter. That is one piece of a mutilated note. This is another piece of another serial number mutilated note. Both are having more than 88 square centimeter. You have to give him 4,000 rupees. You see again, so here you see this question. So one customer has brought you mismatched 2000 note, one portion has one serial number and another portion has another serial number. Each portion has more than 88 square centimeter. What is the amount of refund you will give to him? 2000, 1000, 500, none of this. Correct answer for question number 84 is none of this. If it is none of this, the correct answer is what is that? 4,000 rupees. So one note you will take a separate mutilated. The another serial number you will take separately, you will give him 4,000 rupees. This question was asked some levels last year exam in some other bank. Okay, that is why I put the question here. And these questions in the subjects are frequently asked by IBBS, not only in our exam, in other banks' exams also. From there also questions have been picked up and put to you. Be thorough with the questions. Then, so question number 84 is over. So from these questions, we saw the two slides. Based on the two slides, we gone through certain questions. So these questions already made available to you. The PowerPoint also I will make available to you so that you can read again. Question number 85. Before decline, so now the next three questions, we are going to discuss on banking ombudsman. Questions are there on banking ombudsman. So we will see 2-3 questions. A PowerPoint is also there. Wherever required only, we will go through the PowerPoint. Otherwise, we will skip the PowerPoint because time is not there. Before declining a customer's complaint, bank has to refer the matter to whom? See, your customer has sent a complaint to you. So you are telling no, you are not. You are giving a writing reply to the customer, maybe through your regional office, through your circle office. So you say no. So you are not correct. So before declining a customer's complaint, from whom you have to get the clearance. So bank has to refer the matter to internal ombudsman. So at the head office level, there is a person called a deputy general manager level, retired deputy general manager of banks, or appointed as internal ombudsman. You have to get the permission from the internal ombudsman. Then only the customer's complaint to be declined. Very, very important, particularly when you are giving a declining in writing. Okay. Question number 85, answer is internal ombudsman. Question number 86. From this question number 86, 3-4 questions also we will discuss. Keep that in mind. Questions are being asked. A customer, read the question that is very closely. That is why I told you keep a hard copy of the question paper with you. A customer sent a complaint to your bank on 2nd September 2019. He got a reply on 10th September 2019. He is not satisfied with the reply. Within how many days he has to approach banking ombudsman? Okay, so customer has sent a complaint on 2nd September. You gave a reply on 10th September. Customer is not satisfied with the reply. Then within how many days he has to approach the banking ombudsman? Friends, whenever this question asks, immediately what comes to our mind is 1 year, 1 month. 1 year, 1 month. That is only coming to our mind. To remove this one, I will give the example. I will discuss, then you will understand. When the customer has to go to the banking ombudsman. See, when the customer has sent a complaint to the bank, and even after 30 days of sending the complaint, there is no reply from the bank. Again, I repeat. First, customer has to approach the bank in writing. Bank will give the reply or bank will not give the reply. For how many days bank has to wait? Bank has to wait for 30 days. Beyond 30 days, if there is no reply, then customer can approach the banking ombudsman. Here, 2 things. So if there is no reply, then customer has to approach the banking ombudsman within 1 year and 1 month from the date of reply. Sorry, from the date of the complaint. Again, I repeat. When the customer gives a complaint to the banking ombudsman, and if he has not received any reply within 30 days, customer has sent a complaint, he has not received any reply within 30 days, in that case, when he has to approach the banking ombudsman. If he has not received any reply within 30 days, he has to approach banking ombudsman within 1 year and 1 month. Suppose if the customer has got a reply within 30 days, beyond 30 days, no question. So if the customer has got any reply within 30 days, and if he is not satisfied with the reply, then he has to approach banking ombudsman within 1 year from the date of bank's reply. Two concepts. When there is no reply within 30 days, he has to approach banking ombudsman within 1 year, 1 month. When there is a reply within 30 days, and if he has not satisfied the reply, then he has to approach banking ombudsman within 1 year from the date of reply. Let us see the question now. A customer has sent a complaint to your bank on 2nd September. He got a reply on 10th. So he got a reply within how many days? He got a reply within 8 days. That is within 30 days he got the reply. He's not satisfied with the reply. Within how many days he has to approach banking ombudsman? 1 year, 1 month from 2nd September? No. 1 year, 1 month, 2nd September, if he has not got a reply from the bank within 30 days. Here he got a reply within 30 days. Option A is not correct. 1 year, 1 month from 10th September, no, that is also not correct. 1 year from 2nd September, no. 1 year from 10th September 2019, when he has got a reply within 30 days, and if he has not satisfied the reply, then he has to approach banking ombudsman within 1 year from the date of reply of the bank. So the correct answer for the question is 1 year from 10th September 1 year from, yes, 10th September, because he got a reply on 10th September, which is within 30 days. So 1 year from 10th September 2019. Answer for the question is the last one, 1 year from 10th September 2019. Don't get confused between 1 year, 1 month and 1 year. Okay. Bank has to settle the banking ombudsman award within 30 days or go for appeal from. See, now here I will explain, then you will understand. Whenever a customer approaches the banking ombudsman will give the award. The award will go to the customer. The award copy will come to the bank also. The bank need not react based on the award which it received from the banking ombudsman. Bank can wait. Now, the first choice is for the customer. When the banking ombudsman sends the award, the customer has to accept it or he has to go for appeal within 30 days from the date of the award. So when the award comes to the customer, the award copy will also go to the bank. Bank need not worry at that time. So bank has to wait whether customer is accepting the award or the customer is going for appeal. If the customer is accepting the award, then either he accepting or he is going for appeal, within 30 days of the award he has to do. So the bank will wait. Suppose if the customer says to the bank, yes, I am accepting the banking ombudsman award, please give me the money. So when the bank has to react, bank has to react within 30 days from the date of receipt of acceptance from the customer. So customer has to react within 30 days from the date of award. The bank has to react within 30 days from the date of acceptance letter from the customer. Either bank has to accept it or bank has to go for appeal with the higher authority within 30 days. You see the question here? Bank has to settle the banking ombudsman award within 30 days or go for appeal from which date? From the date of award? No. From the receipt of award? No. From the date of receipt of acceptance award from the customer. So for question number 87, answer is C. So for question number 87, answer is C. Friends, you know what is the maximum award a banking ombudsman can give? A maximum award a banking ombudsman can give is rupees 20 lakhs. And the banking ombudsman can also give an award that is for mental agony, costs, etc. to the extent of rupees 1 lakh. So maximum award 20 lakhs, for mental agony, cost, etc. up to 1 lakh they can give. So in the case of, that is one concept. Then there is a concept, insurance ombudsman. So this is so that question they ask, how much maximum award a insurance ombudsman can give? A maximum award insurance ombudsman can give is maximum 30 lakhs. A banking ombudsman, because we are also dealing the associated party products, we are selling various insurance products. If there is a complaint, he will go to the banking insurance ombudsman, he will go. So the insurance ombudsman can give an award up to 30 lakhs. If that question asked, you should not miss it. Okay, so we have covered these points now. Then we were talking about question number 88. So who is the appellant authority in banking ombudsman? The deputy governor of RBI is the appellant authority in banking ombudsman. Who is the appellant authority? The deputy governor of RBI is the appellant authority. For question number 88, deputy governor of RBI. Okay, sir. Now, the other few questions we are going to go through with regard to the taxation matters. Taxation. So day-to-day basis, we are seeing taxation and we are deducting tax, TDS, CCS. So many concepts are there. If you are not doing it, income tax authorities are imposing fine for us. A detailed PowerPoint is given in the PowerPoint. So already the PowerPoint is made available to many of you, even in the group. We can go through. Now, we will not be going through the PowerPoint. Just these certain questions we will go through. When you go back and read the PowerPoint, any doubts are there, you can raise the question in the WhatsApp. The PowerPoint for test number 1 already made available to all the participants. If it is required again in the evening, I will put it again. Okay, sir. Question number 89. If the financial year is 2020-21, what is the assessment year? So this is the current financial year. You know, the financial year starts from April 1st and it ends in 31st March. The current financial year is 1st April 2020 to 31st March 2021. So this is the financial year. So what are all the income we are getting? We have to file an income tax return in the following assessment year. If the financial year is 2021, the assessment year is 2021-22. Financial is 2021 means the assessment year is 21-22. So we call it as 21. The assessment year will be called as 21-22. 2021 is the financial year. Assessment year for this financial will be 2021. Okay. For the assessment year 21-22. Okay. For the assessment is, that is financial year 2021 means assessment year 21-22. For the assessment year 21-22. Tax rebate of rupees dash is allowed if the annual, that is taxable income, does not exceed rupees 5 lakhs. The tax rebate is 12,500. Everything is in the PowerPoint. So the tax rebate the public will get is 12,500. For question number 90, answer is 12,500. Question number 91. TDS on rental income to be deducted if the total rent payable in a financial year is more than rupees 2.40 lakhs. So whatever changes have come, I have put in the question. Other things are already there. So 2.40 lakhs. Question number 91. TDS on rental income is 2.40 lakhs. When it exceeds 2.40 lakhs, TDS to be deducted. One more thing here, what type of questions they will ask is, they will ask the sections. Under which section of IT Act this tax on rental income is deducted. Everything is available in your PowerPoint presentation. You should be thorough with the 4-5 slides which I have given to you, because if you search anywhere, it is very difficult. Searching time itself will take a lot of time. Will not be able to get. So I put all the matters in the 4-5 PowerPoint. Please go through the sections also of the Income Tax Act. Very important. So for question number 29, answer is 2.40. 91. For question number 91, answer is 2.40 lakhs. Question number 92. What is the rate of TDS to be deducted from salaries if PAN number is not provided? Immediately, all of you will write the option 20%. Friends, it is not 20%. You read the question. What is the rate of TDS to be deducted from salaries? So if you on TDS on deposits, if PAN number is not there, you will deduct 20%. Normally, you got to deduct 10%. TDS on deposits, I'm telling. If PAN number is not given, you will deduct 20%. But the question is, this question was asked maybe sometime, maybe in our bank, I do not know. People came and told me, sir, we wrote 20%. No, it is not 20%. That is for your 20% is TDS on term deposit. Here, the rate of TDS to be deducted from salaries, if PAN number is not given, it is 30%. For question number 92, answer is 30%, 30. Question number 93. Banks to deduct tax from interest on deposits only if it exceeds dash for senior citizen and rupees dash for others in the financial year 2021. In the current financial year, you know, we have to deduct 10% tax on TDS on the interest on the term deposit. For senior citizen, Up to 50,000, you need not deduct TDS. For other than senior citizens, up to 40,000, you interest earned on term deposit, you need not deduct TDS. So for first to fill in the blanks, answer is 50,000. So only if it exceeds 50,000 for senior citizen and rupees 40,000 for others in the financial year 2021. Okay. So question number 93. Question number 94. In the current financial year, due to the pandemic, TDS rates are reduced from which date for certain categories? Friends, you know what is the TDS on interest paid on term deposits? You know it is 10%. So even last year also it was 10%. This year also it was 10%. But that 10% has been changed to 7.5%. So the 10% is applicable from 1/4/2020 to 13/5/2020. So from 14/5/2020, the TDS rates underwent a change. The TDS for term deposit interest deduction is only 7.5, which was 10% earlier. From which date the TDS rate has been, for not only for term deposit, for many things the rate has been reduced. That is available in the PowerPoint presentation. What is the date from which it is reduced? From 14/5/2020 till 31/3/2021. Till the current financial year end, the rates have been slashed by the government of India. So what is the date if they ask? In the current financial year, due to pandemic, TDS rates are reduced from which date for certain categories? It is from 14/5/2020. Okay, you should know the date and what is the rates. Everything is available in the PowerPoint. See, I'll just show the PowerPoint. You'll get an idea. See here. Sorry. So banking ombudsman is there. Good. It is for you. Because fraud, we'll discuss in fraud. Questions will be there in fraud. So that we'll discuss. Sovereign gold bond. That is also questions are there in the slides. So we'll be discussing the sovereign gold bond also. Then you see these TDS rates are here. Absolutely no issue. Everything you can go through because no time to go through the PowerPoint. See, for example, you see, see, I have given you a previous slide. We see. See, section 194A, on that section only, we are deducting interest on term deposit 10%. So other than senior citizen, if it exceeds 40,000, you are deducting 10%. For senior citizen, if it is above 50,000, you are deducting 10%. But from 14/5/2020 to 31/3/2021, the rate of TDS is reduced from 10% to 7.50%. So you have to deduct TDS on interest on term deposit when you exceed 40,000 or 50,000 from 14/5, 7.50 and not 10%. So everything is given in the slide. For example, you see the next slide. So I told you, no, for example, okay. So you see, rent. I told you under section 194IB, rent is deducted. TDS on rent is deducted. TDS on rent, it is 2.40 lakhs in a financial for land and building. Now it is, it was 10%. From 14/5, it is, so what I have given within bracket is revised rate from 14/5/2020 till 31/3/2021. What is given outside the bracket in the blue color, it was the existing rate before 14/5 from 1/4. Now the rates are, so they will definitely ask question in the rates and they will also ask the sections. That is why I have given the sections also. So you should be thorough with the section. You should be thorough with the rate. You should be thorough from which date the rates underwent a change. Okay, that also we have seen in the, so these slides, PowerPoints, I will make available in the group. It is already made available to you. I have explained to you what is the different colors. 7.5 is the revised rate. Existing old rate was 10%. From which date that was changed, that also I told you. Here I have told you from 14/5. So from 13/5 up from 1/4 to 13/5 one rate. From 14/5 to 31/3/2021, the rates have been reduced due to the pandemic. Okay, friends. Then, okay. So question number 94, answer is 14/5/2020. People who are handling the tax matters, particularly the officers and above levels, or should be thorough with the sections, or should be thorough with the rate of taxation deduction, so that there will not be any customer complaints, as well as there will not be any penalty imposed by the income tax authorities. That is why these questions will be asked for you in the examination. The schedules, the PowerPoints are given to you. Okay, question number 95. Tax deducted from interest on term deposit other than for NRIs to be filed with Income Tax Department ETDS on a quarterly basis in a form called 26Q. What is the last date for filing ETDS in respect of 26Q for tax deducted in the quarter January-March? The last date is 30th June of the final 30th June. You can take the PowerPoint gives you regarding the ETDS 30th June. For question number 95, answer is 30th June. Okay. Question number 96. What is the maximum penalty for not filing ETDS on due dates? You know the ETDS to be filed. Okay, every quarter we will file the ETDS. For ETDS filing date, a cutoff date is given. If the ETDS is not filed within the date, within the cutoff date, for every next day, bank has to pay a penalty of 200 rupees per day. If ETDS is not filed within the due date, for every quarter there is a date is there. What is the date? It is available in the PowerPoint presentation to you. If that ETDS is not filed within the due date, then the penalty per day is 200 rupees. The penalty per day is 200 rupees. The question is, what is the maximum penalty? Here, 200 rupees penalty is the minimum penalty. But the question is here, what is the maximum penalty for not filing ETDS on due days? It is not 200 rupees. The 200 rupees per day is only a minimum penalty. What is the maximum penalty? The maximum penalty for not filing ETDS on due days is the total TDS deducted. Okay, you see in the PowerPoint it is there. So again I repeat, you see. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, see, non-compliance of okay. See, failure to file ETDS, fine is rupees maximum. Fine is rupees 200 per day. What is the maximum fine? The question is maximum fine. The maximum fine is the TDS amount deducted. If ETDS is not filed within the due date, then the minimum penalty is rupees 200 rupees per day. The maximum penalty for non-filing the ETDS within the due date is the amount, whatever the TDS amount you are deducted, that is the maximum penalty. Okay, sir? So that is the question here. What is the maximum penalty for question number 96? What is the maximum penalty for not filing ETDS on due days? It is the total TDS amount deducted. It is not 200 rupees per day. Okay. Then remittances made to foreign studies abroad with the bank loan will attract a TCS. There is a concept of tax deduction at source, and there is a concept of tax collection at source. TCS stands for tax collection at source. Tax deducted at source, tax collected at source, TCS. So you are giving educational loan. When you for foreign studies, banks are giving educational loan. After giving education loan, you have to remit to the abroad, no, to the universities or to the students. Then from 1/10/2020, if banks give educational loan and if the proceeds are sent to abroad for the students' purpose, then bank has to deduct a TCS of 0.50%. From 1/10/2020, this question will be asked. Okay, what is the TCS to be deducted for making remittances abroad for from the proceeds of the educational loan? It is 0.50%. If customer has not taken the educational loan, from his own process he is remitting abroad, then in that case, banks has to deduct a TCS of 5%. So the PowerPoint you see, just for information, see, very, very important. Okay, this is a ETDS rates. You don't worry about it. TCS. Okay, so please next slide. So TCS, tax collection at source. Foreign remittances under LRS, you know, liberalized remittance scheme. So above 7 lakhs in a financial year. So other than, so okay. So there is a TC and remittance for higher studies other than for bank loan. With effect from 1/10/20, it is 5%. If a foreign remittance is made, if a foreign outward remittance is made for above 7 lakhs and it is above 7 lakhs, either for education purpose or any other purpose, the TCS banks to collect from 110 is 5%. This is as per section 206C within bracket 1G. On the other hand, for foreign studies, if for education loan proceeds are remitted for foreign studies, then the TCS to be deducted at the rate of 0.50%. Okay, these questions they will ask this time, so you should know. So the answer is, so we are seeing the question number 97, answer is 0.50%. Then question number 98. What is the section under which TDS on cash withdrawal for amounts exceeding certain level is prescribed? So what is the section under, so I asked the section, you know, for TDS on cash withdrawal also to be deducted, it is linked to the income tax return filing of the customer. Okay, you also know. So what is the question is, what is the section under which that is TDS to be deducted for withdrawal of cash by the customer? So this is section, this is next slide. This is I complain cash withdrawal from final year not exceeding 1 crores. This is 1 minute. Minimum 200 rupees. This is question number. Sorry. What is the maximum penalty? Okay, cash withdrawal. Question number 98. So the answer for the question is, question number 98. Answer is section 194N. So that is, what is the section under which TDS on cash withdrawal for amounts exceeding certain level is prescribed? It is section is 194N. So there are different things, different rates are there. One rate is customer who is an IT or compliant, the customer who is not an IT or non-compliant. If he has not filed ITR in any of the last 3 financial year, the rate is more, TDS rate. If he has filed the ITR in any one of the last 3 financial year, the rate is less. What is the rate? What is IT or compliant? Everything is there in the PowerPoint presentation. The section I have put here, section 194N, because TDS on cash withdrawal is introduced by, that is your income tax department from last year, section 194N. This year, it underwent a change. This year, they linked it to income tax return filing. So when he has to file the income tax return, etc., is available in the PowerPoint. Be thorough with the thing. Particularly this type of little the difficult things may be asked for a manager or a senior manager. Okay, the section you should know 194N. What is the rate of tax? You should know. Okay, sir. Question number 98 is over. Question number 99. Form number 60. Obtained from form number 60 is obtained from the customer on 20th December 2019. This question was asked last time for some levels. This has to be preserved till, you know, you are accepting form number 60 from the customer when customer is not having the PAN number for certain transactions. PAN number has to be obtained for certain transactions. If the PAN number is not there, then you will get a form known as form 60. Okay. Form 60 obtained from the customer, for how many years bankers have to retain? Earlier, the form 60 obtained from the customer, the physical copy we are sending to the income tax department. Now, form 60 obtained from the customer, the physical copy need not be sent to the income tax department. You have to send it electronically once in half year to income tax department in a form known as form 60A. Okay, so that is in a form known as form 61. So form 60 you will obtain wherever PAN number is not given for certain transactions. Whereas for 15G, 15H, you should not accept without PAN number. By obtaining form 60, you should not obtain 15G, 15H. For 15G, 15H, PAN number is a must. If PAN number is not given, you should not accept 15G and 15H. Okay. For some other transactions where PAN number is not there, you can accept Form 60. So the Form 60 obtained from the customers, bank has to retain for a period of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which it is obtained. So again, I repeat, Form 60 obtained from the customers to be retained by the banks for a period of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which it is obtained. So that is a question. That is the answer. Now let us see the example here. Form 60 obtained from the customer on 20th December 2019. When the financial year is over, the financial year of 2019 will be over on 31st March 2020. When he has obtained a Form 60 in the financial year 2019-20, that is, he has obtained on 20th December 2019. That is, he has obtained the financial year in the Form 60 in the financial year 2019-20. So when the financial is ending 31st March 2020. So Form 60 obtained from the customer to be preserved for a period of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which it is obtained. That means from 31st March 2020, you have to maintain for 60 years. So the 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So this Form 60, what is the question number? Question number is 99. This Form number 60 obtained from the customer to be preserved for a period of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which it is obtained. 22, 23, sorry, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So that means he has to preserve the Form 60 till 31st March 2026. Form 60 obtained from the customer in a financial year to be preserved for a period of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which it is obtained. The end of the financial year here is 31st March 2020. That means you have to maintain for 6 years from the end of 31st March 2020. The answer for this question is 31st March 2026. Okay, this is with regard to Form 60. Another question they are asking, Form 15G and 15H obtained from the customers to be preserved for how many period? Form 15.6 and 15H, 15G and 15H obtained from the customer to be preserved for a period of 7 years. Okay, if they ask that question, you should not mix. Form 60 is 6 years. Form 15G and 15H is 7 years. Okay, now the remaining questions, question number 100 to few questions, we will be discussing on Hindi matters. Okay, questions are common. All levels will get a question on Hindi matters. Let us see the question. Question number 100. Hindi Day is celebrated, or Hindi Divas is celebrated on 14th September every year. No, very easy question. Hindi Divas or Hindi Day is celebrated on 14th September every year. Question number 101. TOLIC, TOLIC. That means Town Official Language Implementation Committee. TOLIC means Town Official Language, OL, Town Official Language Implementation Committee. TOLIC to be conducted how many times in a year? TOLIC to be conducted 2 times in a year. Town Official Language Implementation Committee to be conducted 2 times in a year. The gap between 2 meetings should not be more than 6 months. See, you should not conduct in January 1 meeting and you should not conduct December in another meeting. You have to conduct 2 times, but the gap between the 2 meetings should not be more than 6 months. That question they will ask. Maybe for 3 to 4, when they ask that question, they will ask that question. Whereas for 1 to 2, they will ask how many times they conduct, 2 times you will write. For 3 to 4, when they ask this question, they will ask what is the gap between 2 TOLIC meetings. Then the gap between the 2 TOLIC meetings should not be more than 6 months. Okay, if you conduct in January, you have to conduct before June. Like that, if you have to conduct, but 2 TOLIC meetings is sufficient in a year. In the Salakar Samiti meeting to be conducted in a year, how many? In the Salakar Samiti meeting to be conducted 2 meetings in a year. The gap of 6 months is not there for this. For TOLIC, 2 times in a year, then you will get within a gap of 6 months. For in the Salakar Samiti meeting to be conducted, how many meetings? 2 meetings in a year. Question number 102, answer is 2. Then question number 103. What is the percentage of noting in Hindi in a region? Friends, there is a difference between noting and Hindi and correspondence in Hindi. So immediately we will write 55%, 14 what we have bigoted with regard to correspondence in Hindi. The question is not correspondence in Hindi. The question is what is the percentage of noting in Hindi in A region? All these things are available in your HO circulars. Okay. So what is the percentage of noting in AD? What is a noting? A meeting is going on. The circle CGM is conducting a review meeting. Somebody, the stenographer, will sit and note down. No, that is called a noting. Okay, that is called note. So people will ask, what is noting? What is correspondence? Correspondence is writing a letter. Noting is noting down the minutes of it. Okay. What is the percentage of noting in Hindi in A region? I will give for all the regions. The percentage of noting in A region is 75%. Okay, please note it down. The percent for question number 103, we are answering the question now. Percentage of noting for A region is 75%. In B region, it is 50%, 50. In C region, it is 30%, 30. 75, 50, 30. Your 55%, 100% is for correspondence. That is not noting. Noting is 75, 50, 30. Okay, note down. Question number 104. We are going to next question. What is the percentage of training program through Hindi medium in A, B, C and regions? The first question is noting. Then training in Hindi medium in A, B, C regions. I will tell, please note down. For A region, it is 70%. For B region, it is 60%. For C region, it is 30%. When you write and read, it will go in your mind. If you just see and go, that is because this time the competition is going to be very, very huge. Even for 1 to 2, 2017 and 2018 batches are included. For highly qualified, for merit tier, the cutoff going to be huge, lot of competition. You have to read well in the next 30 days or 25 days available to you. Note down and read, then you will get the answer. That is why I told I will not make available the answers immediately. I give an opportunity for you to understand the subject and read it. Then any question asked there, you will be able to answer. So question number 104. Percentage of training program through Hindi medium in A, B and C regions are 70%, 60% and 30%. Okay, good. Then question number 105. World Hindi Day is celebrated. We do not know when Hindi Day is celebrated in India, isn't it? No, they are asking the question when the World Hindi Day is celebrated. The World Hindi Day is celebrated as on 10th January every year. Question number 105, answer is 10th January before Shankaranti. Okay, so World Hindi Day is celebrated every year on 10th January. Okay, 10th January. Question number 105, answer is 10th January. Then, what is the name of the Hindi magazine published by Canara Bank head office, Can Jyoti? So, what is the name of the Hindi magazine? Question number 106. That is question number 106. The name of the Hindi magazine published by Canara Bank is Can Jyoti. Question number 106. Question number 107. Hindi Pakwara, Hindi fortnight. So Hindi Day, you know, on 14th September. Hindi fortnight is celebrated every year on which day? Hindi fortnight is celebrated from 1st September to 14th September. So 14th September Hindi Day, on that day celebrations will go on. So Hindi fortnight in India is celebrated from 1st September to 14th September. Question number 107. Hindi fortnight is celebrated in India. Yes, Hindi fortnight, they call it as Hindi Pakwara. So that's why I given in English. Suppose if they ask the question, when Hindi Pakwara is conducted, if you do not know the answer for Hindi Pakwara, then you find it difficult. So that is why I given within bracket Hindi fortnight. It is celebrated between 1st September to 14th September every year. Question number 108. The articles of the Constitution dealing with the official language. So which are all the articles of the Constitution? Because all other questions will get some back. But these questions are from your circulars which are issued by head office. So these points are there. I have picked up from there. Questions will be asked. The articles of the Constitution dealing with the official languages are the articles sections are the articles of the Constitution are 343 to 351. Again, I repeat, the articles of the constitutions dealing with Hindi are 343 to 351, 343 to 351. Okay, these are all the articles. Okay. Question number 109. The periodicity of a submission PRR 18 is calendar quarter. All of us are aware. And it has to be submitted online. Okay, from last quarter onwards, HO circular has come. The periodicity of submission of PRR is calendar quarter. It is not quarterly. There is a difference between quarterly and calendar quarter. What is calendar quarter? March, June, then September, December are called calendar quarters. What is quarterly? You know, SB interest is credited on quarterly. February, then April, May, like that is quarterly. So here you should be very thorough. They are asking the question. PRR submission is calendar quarter. It is not quarterly, it is calendar quarter, and it has to be submitted, that is online. Submitted dash online. 109, 110. Now, so next few questions, there will be on, that is fraud committed by the customers, fraud committed with the convenience of the staff members, to whom you have to report, when you have to report. These questions are frequently asked by IBPS. So I will go, rush through the PowerPoint presentation, then you will get an idea, then we'll see the question. So the very, very important slides, friends, don't miss the slides. Okay, so I'll show the slides to you and explain to you. Only 2-3 slides. Let us not spend much time over there. Reporting of fraud to the police, reporting of fraud to CBI. When you will report, who has to report, we are going to see now. Okay, good. Next, you see. So, now, all frauds, all banking frauds are below 300 rupees, that is 30 million. All banking frauds below rupees 300 lakhs. 300 lakhs means now your IBPS is asking the questions on millions. 1 lakh is equal to 10 million. You keep that in mind, because RBI master circulars are also appearing in millions only. So IBPS started asking the questions on millions. 1 million is equal to 10 lakhs. If they ask in millions, you should not draw a blank. That is why again and again I am repeating that word. All frauds of below 300 lakhs. I told you 1 million is equal to 10 lakhs. 300 lakhs or 30 million. All frauds of below 300 lakhs to be reported to the local police. So 300 lakhs and above, 3 crores and above, 30 million and above. All public sector banks have to report the fraud to CBI. When they have to report the fraud to CBI? Only when it is 3 crores and above. Only when it is 30 million and above. Only when it is 300 lakhs and above. They got to report the fraud to CBI. As far as the private sector banks are concerned, they need not report the fraud to CBI. It is sufficient if they report the fraud to the local police. Public sector banks have to report the fraud to local police or CBI depending upon the amount. Okay. So all frauds below rupees 300 lakhs to be reported to local police. Then, if the fraud amount is less than 10,000 rupees, if the fraud amount involved amount is less than 10,000 rupees, circle office will decide whether you will report the matter to local police or not. They will give you a decision. Accordingly, you can fight, you need not fight. Then, if the fraud amount is 10,000 and above, but below, that is 0.10 million. What is the 0.10 million? 0.10 million is 1 lakh. You know, I told you, no. So 1 lakh is equal to 10 million. 0.10 million means 1 lakh. Frauds of 10,000 and above, but below 1 lakh, 0.10 million, the branch has to report it to the local police. What I told you first point, less than 300 lakhs, less than 30 million to be reported to local police. That they have divided into 3 categories. What are the categories? Less than 10,000, you can report to local police. You need not report to local police. Your circle office will give you a decision. But 10,000 and above, less than 1 lakh, you have to necessarily, after getting permission from circle office, branches have to report it as a fraud to the local police. If the amount involved is 1 lakh and above, that is 0.10 million and above, and if it is less than 30 million, that is less than 300 lakhs. If the amount involved is 1 lakh and above or 0.10 million and above, less than 30 million, then circle office will file it as a fraud to the state CID or economic offences wing of the state. Again, I repeat, frauds of less than 30 million to be reported to local police. If the amount is less than 10,000, you can take a decision whether to report it or not. If the amount is 10,000 and above, less than 1 lakh, branches have to report it to the local police after getting permission from circle office. If the amount is 1 lakh, yeah, 1 lakh and above and less than 30, sorry, 1 million, 1 lakh and above or 0.10 million and above, less than 3 crores or less than 300 lakhs or less than 30 million, it has to be reported to state CID, economic offences being of state CID by circle office. This is for less than 300. All these things to be done within 21 days of detecting the fraud. Okay, sir. Then next slide. If the fraud is 3 crores and above, 30 million and above. If the fraud is 30 million and above, and up to and inclusive of 250 million. What is the 250 million? 25 crores. If the fraud is 3 crores and above, up to 25 crores, if there is a staff involvement, then it has to be reported to Central Bureau of Investigation, Anti-Corruption Team. If the fraud is involved, that is 3 crores and above, up to and inclusive of 25 crores, with the involvement of the staff member, it has to be reported to CBI Anti-Corruption Branch. If the amount is 30 million and above, less than 250, up to 250 million, and if there is no staff involvement, it has to be reported to CBI, Economic Offences Wing. But they are giving some example. A fraud of 450 crores, 450 lakhs is deducted in a bank with the involvement of the staff member. To which branch of CBI you have to report? Again, I repeat, frauds of 3 crores up to 25 crores with staff involvement to be reported to Anti-Corruption Branch of CBI. If for this amount, if there is no staff involvement, it has to be reported to Economic Offences Wing of CBI. And the fraud amount is above 250 crores, above 250 million, that is above 25 crores, up to and inclusive of 50 crores, that is 500 million, with or without staff involvement. Because without staff involvement is only up to 25 crores. Above 25 crores, up to 50 crores, with or without staff involvement, frauds to be reported to CBI Banking Security and Fraud Prevention Cell. Above 25 crores, up to 50 crores, with or without staff involvement, there is no distinction between the two. The frauds have to be reported by banks to CBI Banking Security and Fraud Prevention Cell. And if the fraud amount is above 50 crores, with or without staff involvement, it has to be reported directly to Joint Director, CBI, New Delhi by banks. So, less than 3 crores, up to 10,000, 10,000 to 1 lakh to less than 3 crores to local police, CID. If it is 3 crores and above, up to 25 crores, where staff involvement is there, CBI Anti-Corruption Branch. If there is no staff involvement, CBI Economic Offences Wing. If it is above 25 crores, up to 50 crores, all cases with or without staff involvement to be reported to CBI Banking Security and Fraud Prevention Cell. If it is above 50 crores with or without staff involvement, it has to be reported to Joint Director, CBI, New Delhi. Okay, these things you should know by God, friends. Questions will be asked from that. With many level it will be asked, you should not miss it. Then all frauds of rupees 10 million. 10 million means, you know, so that is 1 lakh is equal to 10 million. Yes, all frauds of rupees 1 lakh and above to be reported to Central Vigilance Commission. CVC is Central Vigilance Commission. Now let us see the question now. Based on this, you will get some idea. So these slides you should be thorough, because for each point I cannot make a question because the question paper will run for pages. So I have taken 1 or 2 points, but all other points are given in the PowerPoint presentation. You have to go through it. So now we will go to question number 110. Okay, 110, now we are seeing question number 110. A fraud of 400 million. 400 million means what? 4 crores. Okay, 4 crores. A fraud of rupees 4 crores occurred in a public sector bank where staff involvement is detected. What I told you, anything above 3 crores up to 25 crores where staff involvement is involved, you have to report to Anti-Corruption Branch. Here, how much fraud is involved? The fraud involved is 4 crores. Whether with involvement of staff? Yes, where staff involvement is detected. The bank has report to which branch of CBI? Anti-Corruption Branch. Okay, if there is no staff involvement, Economic Offences Wing. Here, the correct answer for question number 110 is Anti-Corruption Branch. Question number, and is to which branch CBI bank has to report? Anti-corruption branch. Okay, sir. Then question number 111. So all other questions are there in the PowerPoint. I have not covered that. All frauds. Okay, question number 111. Now, just you go through the question. What comes in your mind, I can understand by sitting here. But what most of you is getting in mind is a wrong answer. Now let us see the question. Question number 111. Under sovereign gold bond scheme, what is the maximum an individual can hold in a financial year? 4 gram, 20 gram, 1 gram, none of these. Again, I repeat the question. Under sovereign gold bond scheme, what is the maximum an individual can hold in a financial year? So you see the slide. So immediately for you, the answer will come 4 grams. Isn't it 4 kg, 4 kilogram? That answer is wrong. So answer for question number 111 is none of these. Answer for question number 111, none of these. So what I asked the question, how much an individual can hold in a financial year? See, the 4 kilogram is an individual can subscribe in a financial year. There is a difference between subscription and holding. Last year, you are subscribed 4 kilogram. This year, you can subscribe 4 kilogram. 4 plus 4, how much it will happen? 8 kilograms, isn't it? The sovereign gold bond in BEC for the last 4-5 years. You would have invested in the sovereign gold bond in various years. Today, you may be having 25 kilograms. There is nothing wrong. The question is, how much an individual can hold in the sovereign gold bond? That is, answer is none of these. Don't take the answer 4 kilogram. The 4 kilogram is only subscription in a year. Let us see the PowerPoint. So sovereign gold bond, see the maximum limit of subscription 4 kilograms for individuals, 4 kilogram for HUF, and 20 kilogram for trustees and trust and other entities. Okay, so this is only a subscription. Then bond, you know, the minimum subscription 1 gram, etc. The ceiling prescribed, that is in a financial year, how much a person can subscribe? 4 kilogram, 20 kilogram. It is for the financial year. It is not for the calendar year. So it includes, because the bonds are freely tradable in the market. So the subscription includes bonds subscribed under the various tranches issued by the government of India, and also bonds purchased by the individuals in the secondary market. That means in a financial year, an individual can subscribe maximum 4 kilogram, either directly whenever government comes out with the issue, or they can purchase in the secondary market also. Put together in a financial year, it should not exceed 4 kilogram. But the question is, it is not how much you can subscribe. The question is how much an individual can hold. So answer for this question is none of these. The individual can hold any amount put together, including the last years. Okay, sir. The next question, 112. So question number 112. Question number 112. Okay, 112. Banks to provide paid checks to his customers as per which act? See, you are making payment, either cash payment or passing the checks in clearing. Your customer has issued the check. Either you are passing the check across the counter and making the cash payment, or you are passing the check in the clearing. Now the customer is coming and asking you, sir, please give me back the paid checks. So from during this period to this period, so I have issued these checks and you also passed the checks. Please give me the paid checks. The question is whether we can give back the customer the original paid checks, or we have to give only Xerox copy. So as per section 45Z, as per section 45Z of the Banking Regulation Act 1949, the paid original checks can be given back to the customers against some indemnity. So what is that indemnity? So as per Banking Regulation Act section 45, section 45Y, as per Banking Regulation Act section 45Y, the preservations of paid checks is given. You know, in Canara Bank, we have to maintain we have to preserve the paid checks for a period of 10 years. Where it is given in section 45Y of the Banking Regulation Act. Now, the paid checks you have to keep for a period of 10 years. Now, when the customer is coming and asking, sir, give me back my paid checks, you have to get an indemnity from him stating that, yes, I am taking the paid checks for the data so and so. I will preserve the paid checks as given by Reserve Bank of India as per section 45Y. Okay, so banks can give the paid checks, original checks to the customer as per section 45Z of the Banking Regulation Act. Answer for this question is section 45Z of the Banking Regulation Act. What the customer in turn has to give? He has to give an indemnity that I will preserve the original checks as per section 45Y of the Banking Regulation Act. Okay. So what is the, so banks have to provide paid checks to the customer as per which act? Indian Limitation Act, Indian Evidence Act, Bankers Book of Act, RBI Act. The correct answer is E, Banking Regulation Act. The answer is Banking Regulation Act, section 45Z. Okay, and 12, and 13. What is the limitation period available to a holder of a check dishonored due to insufficiency of funds to file suit under section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act? 30 days from the date of the check, 30 days from the date of return of the check, 30 days from the rate of intimation from the bank, none of these. For question number 130, the answer here is none of these. The answer here is none of these. What is that? Because the question is frequently asked. I will brief, then you will be understand. See, suppose a customer is giving a person a check. Okay, that is Mr. A is giving a check to Mr. B for 10,000 rupees. Who is giving? Mr. A is giving a check to Mr. B for 10,000 rupees. First of all, the check should have been given for a consideration. Consideration means what? A has purchased something from B, or A has borrowed money from B. That is consideration. So A has given a check to B for certain consideration which A has taken from B. Okay. And B has to present the check within 3 months, the validity period. B has to present the check within the 3 months. So when the check is returned for the reason insufficient funds, so A has issued a check to B for consideration A received from B. Then second point, B should present the check within 30 days. Within 3 months. That is negotiable, the validity of the check. Then the check should have been returned by the bank for the reason insufficient funds. Okay. So in these three conditions are fulfilled, then B, the payee of the check, can file a suit against A under section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, he has to file. Then the question is, within how many days or how many months he has to file a suit? That is the question now. The question here is, within how many days or how many months B has to file a suit as per section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. See friends, one more point also here you should know. The check should have been accepted for consideration. The check should be presented within 30 days or within 3 months, and the check should be returned for the reason insufficient funds. As per Supreme Court order, if the check is returned for other reasons like account closed, what are other reasons? Account closed and drawer signature differs, then a stop payment instruction given by the drawer. See, Negotiable Instrument Act says the check is returned for insufficient funds. Supreme Court says, besides that, if the check is returned, if the check is stop payment, the check is stop payment instruction is given for the check, or the signature of the drawer differs, he has put different signature purposefully, or the third point is the account is closed before the check is presented. In these three cases also, the B, Mr. B, the payee of the check, can file a suit under section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. So if they ask, as per Supreme Court order, what are all the reasons under which a payee can file a suit for the check return? Stop payment, account closed, signature of the drawer differs. In these three cases also, the payee can file a suit besides, that is insufficient funds or amount exceeds, whatever it is, exceeding arrangement or whatever it is like that. Now, the question is, within how many days he has to file a suit? So, when a check is returned, the bank has to inform the customer within 24 hours of the return. The outward check is put in a check drop box. You are presenting the clearing, so the check is returned. The other bank is informing the check is not paid. Then, with a check return memo, you have to inform the customer within 24 hours of the return of the check. Okay. Then the customer has to send a notice. Okay, the Mr. B, here B is the payee. The customer has to send a notice to the drawer of the check within 30 days from the date of receipt of the check return intimation. Again, I repeat, a payee of the check, when the check is returned, banks are supposed to inform the customer within 24 hours of the check return and along with the check return memo. Okay, then the customer has to send a notice to the drawer of the check, that is within 30 days of receipt of the intimation from the bank. After sending the notice, the payee will has to wait for another 15 days. What happens? You are informing the customer. Customer in turn informs his drawer, sir, your check is returned, please pay me the money. After informing the customer, so within how many days the customer has to inform the drawer? Within 30 days of receipt of intimation from you. After he informs the drawer, then he has to wait for 15 days. So the drawer has time to make the payment within 15 days. Even after the 15 days, if the payment is not received by the payee, okay, 24 hours, from the 24 hours within 30 days, so within after that with another 15 days he will wait. Even after 15 days, if there is no information to the payee with regard to the payment, or he has not received the payment, that time, end of the 15th day is called the date of cause of action arises. So they will ask the question, what is the date of cause of action arises? The date of cause of action arises is the payee has to send a notice to the drawer within 30 days from the date of receipt of the intimation with regard to the return of the check. Then the payee can make the drawer can make the payment within 15 days. Even after 15 days of the receipt of the notice, if the drawer has not paid the payment, then the date of cause of action arises at the end of the 15th day. Then this fellow has to go to court. No, when he has to go to court, he has to go to court within 30 days from the date of cause of action arises. When the payee will go to court, the payee can go to court. First, you informed the payee. Payee within 30 days informed the drawer. He has given time for 15 days. Even at the end of the 15 days, there is no intimation. Then the date of cause of action arises. From the date of cause of action arises, the payee has to go to court under section 138 within 30 days from the date of cause of action arises. Now you see the question. What is the limitation period available to a holder of a check dishonored due to insufficient funds to file a suit under section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act? 30 days from the date of check, no, wrong. 30 days from the date of return of check, wrong. 30 days from the date of intimation of the bank, wrong. None of these. So answer for this question is none of these. The correct answer is 30 days from the date of cause of action arises. What is the date of cause of action arises? I already explained to you. Okay, question number 114. As per section 143A, this amendment has come in 2018 in the Negotiable Instrument Act. So, as per section 143A of Negotiable Instrument Act, the court trying the offence under section 138 can award an interim compensation of -% of the check, which has to be paid to the payee within 60 days of the order. So, the payee has go and file a suit under section 138. Then it takes a lot of time to take the case. So the court will immediately give an order. You say order to the drawer of the check. So this is the check amount. The check is returned for the reason insufficient funds. You immediately pay 20% of the check within 60 days. Then I will take up the case. Okay. So as per section 143 Negotiable Instrument Act, the court trying the offence under section 138 can award an interim compensation of 20%. So for question number 114, answer is 20% of the check, which has to be paid to the payee within 60 days of the order. Okay, either they will ask 60 days or they will ask 20%. Both you should know. Okay, question number 115. When a customer service of a bank is disturbed for 2 hours, the risk associated with it is called operational risk. 115. So the question for 115 answer is operational risk. Okay. Question number 116. This question was asked some time back. A wants to open an SB account with B jointly with the condition that the account to be operated by B only upon the death of A. Again, I repeat. A wants to open an SB account with B jointly with the condition that the account to be operated by B. So A and B wants to open, but the condition is B will operate the account only upon the demise of A. What type of account to be opened? Here you will open either or survivor, you will open either or surveyor with A as number 1, number 1 or surveyor with A as number 1, farmer or surveyor with B as number 1, none of these. So you have to open the account, that is number 1, sorry, you can open the account with the condition farmer or survivor. But here, say here, farmer or survivor B. But what the condition is, A wants to open an SB account with B jointly with the condition that account to be operated by B only upon the death of A. So what account, either or survivor, you cannot open. Number 1 or survivor with A as number 1. So A will be number 1, B will be number 2, number 1 or survivor. So number 1 will operate the account. So upon the death of number 1, B will operate the account. So you will the option for this answer, question is 116. Answer is B. Number 1 or survivor with A as number 1. So only upon the death of A, B can operate the account with this condition. Answer is B. Okay. Question number 117. What is the minimum and maximum limit in ECS? What is ECS? Electronic Clearing Service. ECS. They will ask the expansion. What is ECS? ECS is Electronic Clearing Service. Electronic Clearance Service, you have both debits and credits. What is the minimum and maximum limit for Electronic Clearance Service? Either debits or credits. There is no minimum or no maximum. Like NEFT. NEFT, no minimum, no maximum. Whereas RTGS, minimum is 2 lakhs, maximum there is no amount. Whereas like that, in ECS, ECS is works through the MICAR code, okay, magnetic ink character recognition code. So NEFT RTGS works through the that is the IFS code. Here, this ECS works through the MICAR code. The minimum and maximum limit under ECS, no minimum, no maximum. Question number 118. This question they ask: a check return memo to be attached with a returned check. Okay, so the customer should know what for the reason the check is returned. Then only he can go file a suit under section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. A check return memo is to be attached with a returned check. That is the proof in the court. He has to show it as a proof. This is as per which guidelines? A check return memo has to be attached with a returned check. This is as per which guidelines? Negotiable Instrument Act, RBI Act, the Banking Regulation Act, Payment and Settlement System Act, none of these. For question number 118, answer is none of these. Okay, the correct answer is a check return memo to be attached with a check return, the returned check as per clearing house rules. This is as per clearing house rules. 118, correct answer is as per clearing house rules. None of this is the answer for the option. Correct answer is as per clearing house rules. 119. A paper attached with a check for the purpose of endorsement is called allonge. So a paper, so on the back of the check, endorsements are coming. If the space is not sufficient, the customer will attach another paper along with the check that is called allonge. If they ask that, you should be able to write allonge, A-L-O-N-G-E. So this allonge is defined where? The allonge is defined in section 15(1)(5) of Negotiable Instrument Act. The allonge is defined under section 1(5)(15) of Negotiable Instrument Act. Section question number 119, section 15(1)(5) of Negotiable Instrument Act. Question number 120. As per RBI directive dated 12th July 2018, DDs and pay orders issued on or after dash to contain the name of the purchaser. This is to avoid possible money laundering. So they may ask the question, as per RBI circular so and so, DDs to be issued with the name of the purchaser. What is the reason? The idea is to avoid money laundering. Okay. Now, from which nowadays you are issuing the DD with the purchaser's name is also printed, isn't it? That is from the question is, yes, all of us are aware. What is the purpose for this? To avoid money laundering. Then from which date DDs are issued along with the name of the purchaser? That question they asked last time. From which date the name of the purchaser is incorporated in the DD, then you'll draw a blank because you do not know the date. No, if you go and type, it gives the purchaser's name. From which date? For question number 120, the answer is from 15th September 2018. From 15th September 2018, DD is issued should contain the name of the purchaser. Question number 120. The correct answer is 15th September 2018. Question number 121. In India, who can issue demand drafts payable to bearer on demand under which act? So, what is the instrument that is demand drafts payable to bearer on demand? What is that instrument? That is demand drafts. So, you know, bankers cannot issue DDs payable to bearer. If you go and see your DD, order only will be there. Bankers can issue DD only payable to order. But DDs can be issued payable to bearer also. That is what? That is called the Indian currency notes. DDs payable to bearer, bankers cannot issue, but only Government of India and Reserve Bank of India can issue. Government of India will issue 1 rupee currency notes, which is payable to bearer. Reserve Bank of India will issue 2 rupee currency notes up to 2,000 rupees currency note denomination, which is payable. If you see the currency note, you will get the word bearer. But if you see your DD, you will get only the word order. So who can issue? Only Government of India and that is Reserve Bank of India can issue demand drafts which are payable to bearer, which is called nothing but the Indian currency note. As per which section? Question number 121. The answer is B. RBI and the Government of India under section 31 of RBI Act 1934. This question they are frequently asking. In India, who can issue demand drafts payable to bearer on demand under which act? Options are A. Banks under section 31 of NI Act. That is not correct. B. RBI and Government of India under section 31 of RBI Act 1934. That is the correct answer. Question number 121. Answer is B. Question number 122. Your branch is having a joint either or survivor SB account of Mr. A and Mr. B operation severally. What do you mean by that? Joint accounts, A and B, any one of them can operate. Operation severally means any one of them can operate. That is called operation severally. So your branch is having a joint either or survivor SB account of Mr. A and Mr. B operation severally. Question number 120 we are discussing, friends. Question number 120 we are discussing. Operation severally. They have appointed Mrs. A as the mandate holder for operating the account. Mr. A and Mr. B, joint account, operation severally. Whom they have appointed? They have appointed Mrs. A for operating the account as mandate holder. A check signed by Mrs. A is presented for payment. Who has signed the check? The authority holder, the mandate holder has presented the check for payment. Before that, before the check comes for payment, you come to know that Mr. B is adjudged insolvent. Who has adjudged insolvent? One of the account holders. A and B are the account holders. Mrs. B is the mandate holder. You got a check signed by the mandate holder. When the check comes for payment, you come to know one of the account holders has been adjudged as insolvent. All other things are in order. Check balance is there. Check is pakka. A is not adjudged as insolvent. A is alive. B is alive. Mrs. A is alive. In this case, whether you will pass the check or you will return the check. That is a question. A. Pass the check. Get the consent of A and pass. Get the consent of Mrs. A and pass. Return the check. 4 options are available to you. If I tell you that is subject, any type of question here you will answer. See, when an account is opened in a joint name, SB account, keep in mind the money belongs to both of them. Again, I repeat. When an account is opened in a joint name, whomsoever name the account is there. In the case of a minor, the money belongs to the minor. Guardian is only a father who will only operate the account. You keep that in mind. In whose name the account is there, the money belongs to them. Okay. In this case, the money belongs to A and B. The operation condition can be anything. Jointly, either or survivor, severally, number one or survivor, farmer or survivor. Friends, these things are only operating conditions for a running account. But the money belongs to both A and B. Okay. Now, both A and B has given some mandate to another person, Mrs. A. One thing you should keep in mind, suppose if the account holder, in the case of a single account, the single account holder, in the case of a joint account, any one of the joint account holder. See, if something, if you come to know, only when you come to know, if you come to know that your account holder has died, if you come to know your account holder has become insolvent, if you come to know that your account holder has become insane, any check, any further debits in the account, either it is a single account or joint account, whatever may be the operation condition, or a check issued by the mandate holder, nothing is in date of the check, nothing is immaterial. When you come to know that something out of the three, that is account holder has died, account holder has become insane, account holder become insolvent, either single account holder or any one of the account holder. When the banker comes to know any one of things, all other further debits in the account is not permitted. Okay, so in this case, what has happened? The account is operated by A and B severally. Any one of them can operate. They are given a mandate in respect of Mrs. A. The check is presented for payment signed by Mrs. A. Before that, you come to know who has become adjudged insolvent, Mr. B. Mr. B is one of the account holders. The money in the account belongs to B also. So when you come to know that Mr. B is adjudged insolvent, all other things are in order, you have to return the check. So question number 122, point number, correct answer is D. Keep that in mind. Anything happened to the account holder, irrespective of the date of the check or any other thing, no debit should be permitted in that account. So return the check. And 122, answer is D. 123. 123. So till 125 we'll read and we'll take a break, sir. Okay. Okay, question number 123. B taken a loan against FDR, which is in his name. So what has happened? B is having an FDR with you and he has taken a loan against the FDR. After taking the loan, he wants to nominate his son for this FDR and add his daughter's name to the FDR. He wants to do one thing. He's having an FDR. After he has taken availed a BSL against the FDR, after taking the BSL, what he wants to do, he wants to add his son's name in the FDR. Sorry, he has to nominate his son for the FDR and add his daughter's name to the FDR. Here, whenever there is a loan against a deposit, the logic is whenever there is a loan against the deposit. So this deposit is called encumbered deposit. So either directly or indirectly, the deposit can be taken as a collateral also. When a VSL, it is a prime security. When it is taken as some other loan as a collateral, it is a collateral security. So these deposit, against the deposits, whenever there is a loan, these deposits are called encumbered deposit. So when a deposit is encumbered, adding the nominee is permitted. So when you are having a deposit, so adding a nominee, even if the deposit is encumbered, adding the name nominee to the deposit is permitted. But when a deposit is encumbered, addition, deletion, and the substitutions of names in the deposit is not permitted. Again, I repeat, when the deposit is encumbered, addition of nomination or deletion of nomination or change in the nomination is permitted. But addition, deletion, and substitution of names in the deposit is not permitted. That is a logic. Now you see the question. B has taken a loan against the FDR, which is in his name. After taking the loan, he wants to nominate his son for the FDR and add his daughter to the name. That means first is permitted. That is, nominating his son is permitted and daughter's name addition is not possible in the FDR. Both can be done. No. Both can be done. No. Nomination is possible, but adding name is not possible. So answer for the question 123, answer is C. Question number 123, answer is C. Two more questions we will see. 124. Bank is not required to produce original book of records, but true copy to be submitted when court demands. So that is, it is not necessary. You cannot take your computer and show to the banking court authorities. It is sufficient if you give a true copy of that is your pass sheet, whatever it is. This is as per Banking Regulation Act 1949. True or false? Answer is false. Question number 124, answer is false. The correct answer for the question is Bankers Book of Evidence Act. Question number 124. Bank is not required to produce original book of records, but true copy to be submitted. This is as per, the answer is false. This is as per Bankers Book of Evidence Act. Then question number 125. So with this question, we are going for the break, sir. What is essential in a special crossing? So what is crossing? Crossing means two transverse parallel lines will appear across the check or across the DD. There are three types of crossing, you know. One is general crossing, another is special crossing, the third one is account payee crossing. General crossing and the special crossing, they are defined in the Negotiable Instrument Acts. Account payee crossing is not defined in the Negotiable Instrument Act. Account payee crossing is as per practice of the bankers. Now, what is a general crossing? What is the important feature of a general crossing? The important feature of a general crossing is two transverse parallel lines across the check should appear. There can be words within that. There need not be words within that. Two transverse parallel lines across the face of the check. There can be words like not negotiable, undergo, Delhi, Mumbai. Anything can be written across within the two transverse parallel lines. When there is two transverse parallel lines, it is called a generally crossed check. What is a special crossing? In the case of a special crossing, name of the banker will appear. For example, when the checks are dropped in your check drop box, your substaff will take the checks from there. He will affix a seal called special crossing, Canara Bank, Canara Bank, Canara Bank. So the special crossing, there is no need for two parallel lines. The word Canara Bank appears itself, it is called. So what is the special feature of a special crossing? The special feature of a crossing is name of a banker should appear with or without line. In the case of a general crossing, two transverse parallel lines to appear with or without anything in between it. So special crossing feature is name of a banker to appear with or without two lines. Similarly, in the case of an account payee crossing, the word account payee should appear with or without two transverse parallel lines. Now you see the question. Question number 125. What is essential in a special crossing? Two transverse parallel lines. No. Name of the bank with or without two transverse parallel lines. That is correct. So question point number C, you see, name of a bank within two transverse parallel. No, it is not necessary. So what is the future of essentials of a special crossing? Answer for question number 125 is B, name of the bank with or without two transverse parallel lines. Another question, shall we stop at 10 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
अंग्रेजी में पढ़ाता है।
Friends, there will be a break for 15 minutes.
Please stay